This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Pierre and Chloe Pett, our guest today.
Hello.
You can text the show on 81215, follow us on X and Instagram at Frank on the Radio. Email via frank@absoluteradio.co.uk. Good morning, Chloe.
Hello.
Do you recognise this?
Oh, do I?
It's from The Private Life of Pets.
Yes,
And it's actually called Meet the Pets, that particular track.
Here I am.
Yeah. You should come on stage to that. Be great music to walk onto.
How many people do you think would get that, Frank?
4.
Four? Well, that makes it worth it then, doesn't it?
Lifetime or
Yeah.
per show?
I do stuff that 4 people don't get in an audience. 4 I regard as a sort of borderline hit. So, where we are, it's week, what is it, 19 of the Edinburgh Festival?
So tiring.
They said it would be over by Christmas.
No, that was World War One.
Oh.
You fool. No, it's still tremendous. I'm still seeing shows. I'm liking it. But my family came up this week and I remembered what was back home, and that was bad.
Yeah.
You're supposed to forget about that and think you're some solitary figure who's never really got close to anyone when you're up here.
What do you think is like the peak time that the Edinburgh Fringe should be?
Depends who you are, I think. I think if you don't have family back home, I think it could just be all the year round.
Yeah, there's also a part of me that's like, we should all come up, do 5 minutes and then go home. Our whole year should be judged on whether we can do a tight 5. Off we pop.
Well, I've never done a tight 5 in my life.
Have you not?
No, I can't do a tight 5. I try, and I do a tight 8.
It's barely enough time to introduce yourself, really.
I've seen American comics, and I've been on shows, and the producers come on and said, actually, we're running a bit tight, so I know you're booked for 10, but could you do about 8.5? And I've thought, oh, well, what's the difference? And I've seen American comics go on and do 8.5. They are so professional. And, of course, when I say professional, I mean rubbish. Which is use. How are you? Because if you can do that, you have no soul. It's my theory.
And if you come off stage having just done a gig, the last thing you want is for someone to go, gosh, that was professional.
Yeah, gosh, that was exactly the right
you ran
time.
to time.
Yeah, I want my response mainly from the audience, not from a timekeeper.
Yeah, from an umpire.
Yeah, that's no good. So, but I'm still. I'll tell you what I did this week. I went out for a bubble tea.
Oh, Frank.
Oh, I love bubble tea.
Do you?
Oh God, yes.
God, well, this feels like a real sort of mixture of the high culture and the low. I'm not going to say which way round I think you and bubble tea are in terms of high and low culture.
Okay.
I can't imagine you with those bubbles in your mouth.
Well, I don't think of them as bubbles. I think of them as space dumplings. There's something about the texture of them which I think is pretty unique.
Yes.
And just the feeling of them in rows coming up the straw.
Oh, like sort of peas in a moving pot.
Oh, man.
There's so many of them as well. They don't skimp on the bubbles, do they?
No, that's good, though. I tell you what was very annoying. I went to a place, a cafe. They're all over Edinburgh. They're called Black Sheep Coffee, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And they put ice, a lot of ice in the bubble tea. And then there are pockets in the ice where there are space dumplings trapped that you can't. I felt like a shepherd on a rocky hillside who couldn't get some of his sheep because they'd gone onto ledges which I couldn't reach.
I love this for you, though. I didn't have you down. It's almost like the sort of like orange juice with bits for the modern metrosexual man. I'm very impressed with this, Frank.
Well, I think it's less healthy than orange juice with bits. I don't know if the bits should be made by some sort of machine.
Yes, or made of pudding.
I think it's I think it's a flavour dash texture, thrill. The whole thing. More of bubble tea because I had a bubble tea incident.
Oh no.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
Where was it? Oh yes, I was having a bubble tea, and
We have to establish what flavour.
well, they're a bit limited in Black Sheep coffee. I normally when I go to my dentist across the road. There is a Bubbleology.
Yes.
And in Bubbleology,
Two choices you have
can
there.
really go to town. I
Yes.
find if you go strawberry and passion fruit, you can create a sunset in a plastic cup.
Well, it's a sort of a sunset blotted out by hundreds of alien craft.
Well, exactly. If you can imagine that happening.
Yeah.
Frank,
Exactly.
is it like you have one flavour in the main body of liquid and then a second subsidiary flavour within the bubbles?
Well, if you are gentle with your straw work,
Yes. And
you
I am.
can maintain the separation between your two components, which I love.
If you don't pierce.
Well, if you're one of these people who goes in, like some people, they're roughing up the space dumplings with their
Yeah.
straw.
What? So you can sort of disturb the structural integrity of the space dumpling within before it's even hit your mouth?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that.
Well, that's only done by fools. I don't like ice generally, by the way.
No.
I never have ice in drinks, ever. I don't like it. It's just dilution pellets.
Yes. And previously,
Previously on the Frank Skinner Show.
before shows in Edinburgh, I have to keep emphasising to the sort of venue staff that I'm not asking for a pint of water for pleasure.
No.
I just need
It's lubrication,
I need to
yeah.
hydrate myself.
Yeah, exactly.
The ice is a barrier to that.
Oh, ice on stage, that's a nightmare. Don't mention it ever again. The thing is with ice, because it's one of those things where you know you're being fooled as well. When someone says, here's a big glass of drink, and there's loads of ice in.
And that is what
Are we
they say.
supposed to think, yeah, that's what they say to me. In a sort of here's a big glass of drink. This is the trouble with grey
Get
hair.
it down, you pop your napkin down your front.
And it's no, but you know those trick drinks where Benny Hill used to drink a pint of beer and then another pint of beer,
Yeah.
and in fact there's only a bit around the outside,
Oh, yes,
where
yes,
you
yes.
fill it. That's what happens when you put ice in a drink. You're basically giving you a trick glass that's got no liquid in it hardly. Anyway, my family had just arrived, Kath, my partner, and my son Boz, and it was an emotional moment, but I don't know if you've ever had family arrive when you're up here, but you feel like you've been invaded a bit because you've become a solitary outsider figure, or I have, and suddenly there's like a domestic thing going on. But I'm thinking, no, it's great to see them. And we went and we had a bubble tea. And Boz, I don't know, he got one space dumpling that was a bit of an irregular diameter.
Yeah.
And it got a bit wedged in his straw. So in trying to shift it, he did a sort of a Amazonian tribesman blowpipe. He did one of those, and it couldn't have been better. It hit me in my right eye, and it really hurt. I went down. My elbows touched the table, and it really hurt. And I sort of did a melodramatic, which everyone looked at.
Yeah.
And he was like mortified.
Yeah.
My partner, for some reason, covered her whole face with her hands and seemed to be shaking, I think, with heavy laughter.
Yes.
And what you don't know, listener at home, is that Frank's eye has been dislodged in it now. Is just a space dumpling.
It's a tiny
Well,
little
when
bubble.
I felt the empty casing sliding down my chin, and I thought, is that the space dumpling or my now empty eyeball? With vitreous and aqueous humour sliding down with it. What about that?
Yeah.
Oh, I did like that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what it did. Because of the sugar in a space dumpling, it literally stuck my contact lens to my eye and I couldn't get it out. It was a fabulous shot. It did all the damage required. But then he started crying because I was upset, and I started crying because there was a smashed dumpling in my eye. And Kat started crying because she was laughing so much.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
So that was my dining out experience. At the end of it, not only I've been trying to wipe the sugar off my face to stop everything, and in the end, my fingers were physically sticking together I was blind and webbed. Blind and webbed, I think, could be a pulp novel.
Yeah, so
with me on the front at a cafe table looking distressed.
yeah, so it's a deeply unsettling new double act up at the Fringe.
Yes. Hello, I'm Jeff Blind and I'm Mike Webbed, and we are.
Well, speaking of cafes, Frank, I had a sort of I had a spotting of a flying saucer. A flying saucer sighting.
Okay.
But the least exciting version of that.
Oh.
Put your guns down. It's like we don't want a sort of invasion from Mars radio incident.
I was just doing my welcome aliens sign. Do you remember that in Independence Day when there's guys on top of the Empire State Building, welcome aliens, they just completely zap them from space.
But imagine if this was like, what was that Orson Welles thing
Yes,
he did
exactly.
where everyone...
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds, and everyone was...
Great craft is opening up. Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Skinner's show on Absolute Radio has broken that there are UFOs.
I think it's a myth, the Orson Welles.
Do you think it's
when
marketing?
It started, everyone thought there was a real alien invasion. I have heard a million different actors doing vox pops or pretending that they're being interviewed in a real situation. And it takes about 0.4 of a second to think, no, this is an actor, isn't it, doing it?
Yeah.
I just don't think anyone thought when he went, aliens have been spotted. And I think you think, no, that's not a newsreader, that's an actor.
It's a great myth, though.
Oh, it's a
isn't it?
great
It's
myth.
a great, and it's nice to sort of look at the past and think, all those thick people didn't know what was going on.
Yes. Yes, that's true. But I can do that with Nixon. I don't need to do it with alien invasions. Anyway.
Well, I was sitting in a cafe, and it's a busy Edinburgh cafe, height of the Fringe, and the sort of...
do you want some busy Edinburgh cafe sound effects?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Here we
Go on,
go.
then.
This was exactly the atmosphere.
Come on, let's hear it.
That'll be a piece of tablet you're wanting with your tea there. Oh, thank you very much.
Oh,
yes.
brilliant.
There we go.
Absolutely brilliant atmos.
Yeah. Delightful. And in the middle of this Gaston and Beauty and the Beast style revelry, the waitress had stacked up a lot of crockery. She'd gone ambitious with clearing the tables, get them in, get them out. And a sort of tourist-looking guy came into the cafe the way that people come in when they're sort of looking almost at the roof, like they've landed on an alien planet in Star Trek. They're sort of a bit dazed, as if to say, well, what could this room possibly be for? Steam and the clinking of cutlery.
And why is that man holding his eye?
His tiny little black eye. Exactly. And as he walked in, the waitress sort of made an attempt to get by him with her sort of overflowing stacks of crockery, and a saucer clattered to the floor.
No, hold on, because the Tam O'Shanter has landed. I think that's a great cliffhanger. What happens next? Okay, here it comes. Saucergate, we'll call it that. Continuing the Nixon theme.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
So this saucer clatters to the floor like a dinner gong, and the cafe in general sort of turns to look to see if it didn't shatter. And the man, it fell basically at his feet.
Yeah.
And the waitress was too overburdened to stop and deal with it, so she had to keep going to her station. And he sort of looked at it as it sort of spun to a halt at his feet. And then he looked up and continued his magical journey to the rear of the cafe.
Right.
And everyone there was a sense of everyone going, you could have picked that up. You looked
Right.
directly at it and sort of as if to say, gosh, a saucer. And then kept walking. And then the man's, I presume, partner, certainly a lady he was with, followed him and in a sort of embarrassed way picked up the saucer and delivered it to the waitress at his station while he continued in blissful ignorance.
You see, I'm going to offer a defence of this man because
It's like 12 Angry Men.
I was once walking down a street in Smethwick in the West Midlands, and an old lady, I would say a woman in her late 70s, suddenly lost her balance and fell over right in front of me, slammed onto the pavement in a great sort of cloud of mentholyptus dust. And
when you turned her over, a single bubble tea bubble in her eye.
no,
The shot had been meant for you.
but this is what I did. So there was Buzz. I could just see Buzz putting a straw back in an assassin's case.
Bell tower.
A straw that broke down. It's separate. It's screwed down into 3 separate sections. No, so she fell in front of me, this old lady, and I just stepped over her and kept walking.
Right, so where's the defence, Frank?
I haven't got to the defence yet. My point is, and I could hear, I was sensed behind me, I could hear footsteps of people running to her aid.
Yes.
And people saying, a bit like you did, look, just didn't stop and all that. And it was just too close to me and too sudden for me to have my decision-making time. By the time I'd stepped over it, I felt the moment had gone. And that's why I think the wife or the partner picked it up, because she had that extra couple of seconds to assess. But sometimes it's just too much.
You're arguing for almost a sort of the momentum had carried you forwards, and by the time it had carried you forwards and you'd absorbed the weight of the incident, you'd gone.
Well, I'm on about the old lady falling in front of me. There was something that was it had happened rather than it was happening.
But I feel like the shock of an old lady falling is less frequent than, a waiter dropping something. So I feel like that should have been in his wheelhouse to sort of deal with. Whereas I understand if an old lady drops in front of you, there's not a precedent for what you do there. You're shocked for a moment, and then obviously the second thought would be, I must help this old lady.
Yeah.
Too late, I've stepped over her.
But yeah, I feel like the man, I'm going to say it, he sounds like a chauvinist to me.
I think my view on this would be very different if the saucer had...
If you weren't a chauvinist yourself.
Yes. If I believed that everyone was the same, then I would... No,
I haven't heard the word chauvinist for years.
I'm going to say I risked that one.
Memory lane.
I risked that one. I'm not exactly sure what it means.
I think I might start calling you one of them women's libbers.
Oh.
Please do. It would be an honour, Frank.
It's a shame. It feels like such a modern phenomenon. There's already words that are out of date for it. Yeah.
But I think my view would be different if the saucer had clattered to a halt even a metre away. Or just off a different table or something. Because then you go, oh, well, that's part of the background activity of the cafe. That's nothing to do with me. But because she'd walked across his path and the saucer clattered to a halt between his very toes, between his feet, rather.
I can see. I see your. I just think it's very easy to be judgy in this situation.
I love it. Can we get into his psychology? Can we psychoanalyse him in the next bit, Frank?
All I remember thinking was that old lady was a lot higher horizontal than I expected her to be.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
In terms of your incident in the cafe, Frank, Ruth Jordan gets in touch.
Of course.
And asks, is Frank sure that this space dumpling shot into the eye incident wasn't something he just read in the Beano? And there was a powerful Beano aspect to you.
Yeah, there is, but sometimes life goes Beano.
This is your new book.
Remember, I was chased by a ball once.
That's true.
And I had my hands were full of Christmas shopping clothes, so I couldn't wrestle with it. Otherwise, I would have just took it by the horns and overturned it, obviously. But I literally ran, you know those styles you get in the fields? I literally ran up the fence without using my hands, which I didn't think I was capable of.
That's pretty impressive. Am I going to ask the backstory for why you were in a field with Christmas shopping being chased by a bull?
Well,
presumably in a black and white jumper followed by your dog called Nasha?
No, I was living at Warwick University at the time, and I'd been doing my Christmas shopping in Kenilworth, and then I went to a pub on my own and drank for about 4 hours, and it was dark on the way home.
So say no more, it all makes sense now.
But I remember thinking, as I sat in the other field I could hear the bull still, and I remember thinking, if I died, no one would take this seriously as a death, and the obituary would have to be in the Beano.
Sometimes life goes Beano and death.
Exactly, yeah. You don't want that.
Yeah. No, I mean, yes, the being shot in the eye by a sort of a pea shooter is what they always call it.
I suppose it is a sort of a pea shooter, although Buzz owns a pea shooter, and a friend said, I'd love one of those. And he went on eBay, he was going to get him one, or went on internet. And they've suddenly been classed as offensive weapons, pea shooters.
Well, we can see why, because you're seeing this as like Buzz doing some kind of accident. He's clearly been practicing with his pea shooter.
That is possible. It was a prank.
You turn the back of his door around, there'll be a dartboard with your face on it, and he's hitting the right eye, every single time.
There'll be an eye that's just clustered.
Yeah. I think you've got a sportsman on your hand there. On your hands, Frank.
But is there an Olympic pea shooting event?
Not yet.
But when you see some of the rifle events, there are people like me in the Olympics, just old guys turn up with a big rifle and win gold medals. Doesn't make any sense.
No.
You could win gold medals for poetry at one time in the Olympics.
Really?
Yeah. And art and some sculpture. I don't mean millions of years ago. I mean like in the 20s.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
We should bring that back.
How would you do doping for poetry?
Oh, yeah.
This is artificial melancholy.
But I think we should also do sort of like triathlons and duathlons where we make like people do athletic stuff, like they have to run 100 metres and then at the end they recite a poetry and you're sort of judged.
Oh, that'd be good.
You're judged on both.
The, not so much the Iron Man competition, but the Aluminium Man. Slightly lighter and more silvery. There was an event where you had to fall into a swimming pool flat out and you couldn't kick or do anything with your arms. And it was how far you could go along the water before you just sank.
Began to thrash.
That was an event.
Yeah, I mean, I did that in Ibiza last summer. It sounds like I could have a go on that one.
What's happened? Is that the end of the link? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I've lost all sense of time and space.
This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Pierre Novelli, and Chloe Petts is with us this morning. You can text the show on 81215. Follow us on X and Instagram at Frank on the Radio. Email via frank@absoluteradio.co.uk. Meet the Pets.
Flimming it.
Chloe, how was... we're all talking about Edinburgh. How would you describe your Edinburgh this year?
Largely good, actually. I've had a really nice time. I feel like I sort of never judge it on the shows. I judge it on the social aspect, and the social aspect's been absolutely fantastic.
That's a safer way.
I think so.
Less of a roller coaster.
Yeah, but I also think you leave yourself open to disaster, because last Sunday I had a big night out and I did this. Ivo Graham runs this DJ battle thing where it's basically like you get paired up with another comedian. So I was paired up with Anya Magliano and you get given a category. So ours was like the first letter of our names, and you have to choose 3 songs that fit that category and you sort of compete against each other. But I've always...
what do you mean, in a sort of lip sync challenge or something like that?
No. no, you just play the songs and then
I see.
And the audience will sort of cheer who they think chose better.
Okay.
I find that idea terrifying.
This is utterly alien to
Have
me.
you not done it, Pierre?
No, I would be too afraid to do it.
Yeah, I've seen you in the club and it's like everyone's dancing and you're just sort of there like waiting for someone to throw to you if we need like a philosophical treatise on something.
I'm there like a sort of intellectual bouncer.
Yeah. But if there's no signal in the club, we use Pierre as Google.
What's the best way home? Well,
The great thing is that Pierre looks like a bouncer, but he's got all that going on underneath.
when I was doing tour support for Frank, and I've got a big sort of black waterproof jacket that's very security-ish, often before asking for a photo in a sort of services, they would sort of visually check in with me. Is it okay to approach, Frank?
Don't take me down.
My favourite thing is being in a comedian's car share with you, Pierre. You're always on top of my list. You and Garrett Millerick, I love being in a car with because I'll sit in the back, you two will sit up the front, and then I'll just say something, and then you'll be like, "Oh yes, I read about this in The Economist," and then I just listen for about 15 minutes, and I don't have to do anything. It's lovely.
It sounds awful.
No, it's great. It's
Okay.
like having a live podcast.
Some people just use Radio 4. I was in a comedian car once, and one guy was saying that he'd had a really bad gig and he couldn't work out what had gone wrong and all that on the way back from a gig, this was. And another comic said, but I only ever see you have bad gigs. You've had bad gigs as long as I can remember. It's sort of thing like you'll always have bad gigs. And after that, there was about 120 miles of complete silence for the whole journey.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
it was just, in the end, you sort of get over it. You just start thinking about other things. But speech felt, even for comics who love, bursting bubbles, obviously not in bubble tea. But it was just, well, it was true, was one of the big problems.
No.
One of my favourite car journeys was, again, with Pierre and Garrett. We were on maybe like a 6 to 8 hour round trip, and we were maybe like 5 hours in, like on the way back, and I felt like conversation was sort of slowly dying just because we were so tired, not because we didn't want to be
I
chatting.
can see Pierre looks affronted at the idea that could happen in the car where he was.
Sorry, I'm an intellectual. And then what happened was Garrett received a call which he took on the speaker, the car speaker, and someone gave us an update on the gossip between a lawsuit between two different comedians, and it was the best gift I think anyone has ever given.
That's true. It was like a sort of air ambulance had arrived and dropped supplies.
We were like, right, well, that's the final 2 hours sorted. Fantastic.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
We've had a tweet from Cool Ski who
Cool,
says,
as in one word, like cool ski, like.
the S has been capitalised, so...
Oh, I see, fair enough.
Who says, just Googled bobble tea. It seems that it's
Bobble?
bubble tea.
It is bubble tea, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think
it's
they're prodding
accent.
your accent.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha.
I'm excited for Kulski and their journey of discovering bubble tea.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like that's an exciting one for everyone to get on board with.
It's spreading across the nation. The little
It
bubbles.
is. I think it is. I think it's one of the, the last 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, 5 years.
Where
One
do
of
you-
the big social changes in this country.
Where do you think will be the final holdout against bubble tea? Or lacking rather than against?
Cumbria.
Yes, or Anglesey.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like I think we'll get to like a final point of saturation where the bubble is so big it's just the cup.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you don't need a cup.
Yeah.
You just have one big bubble.
Just take the bubble. You have to just holding it as it wobbles in your hands back to your table. Then they've made the string, the skin so strong, you can just put the straw through it and then drink, and then just discard the skin like one might a coconut shell.
We've just invented the Capri Sun.
Yeah, here you go.
Horrifyingly edible Capri Sun. But within the giant bubbles, drinking from within it, would there be smaller bubbles and ad infinitum?
Oh, that's a good point. Be like one of those mirror things where the images
Bubbleception.
disappear into the distance.
Bubbleception, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Would we split the bubble? Like Einstein and the atom. You know what happened then, though? It all went very
Bubbleheimer.
wrong. It's just a matter of time. Can I say, I went to see a show yesterday called Poof, P-O-O-F. And it was an American performer, actor. And they were playing a fairy in full fairy outfit with, wand. And I really liked it. It was one of those play one-person things where you just thought, my heart is warming to this. And there were 7 people in there. I wanted to go out into the streets, and I've seen people do it in Edinburgh and say, come and see this show. And after about 10 minutes, a woman came in with 2 children, and I thought, I wonder if this is a child-friendly show, because it was very life-affirming, but it was also, real. And she sat with the 2 kids. They had a big tray of chips with tomato ketchup on it, which they were eating. Bear in mind, this is like a 200-seater with 7 people in it they've walked into.
Yeah.
And on stage, the performer registers and says, "Oh, welcome, welcome." Inside, you can tell he's going, "Get out!" And they sit eating their chips, and she, after about 5 minutes, just sits on her phone. The light is flashing in the side. And then about 15 minutes before the end, they just leaving the chips on the bench.
Unacceptable.
And I just thought, it can be a cruel place, Edinburgh.
Oh, God, Lord.
Can't it?
Yeah.
So if you're in Edinburgh this weekend, go and see Poof. Don't let it go away and not witness it. But it's that side. It's all right for us guys with our crowds pouring in every night. But it's just the injustice, the terrible injustice. And I never normally feel like rubbing children's chips in their faces. Oh no, sorry. That was supposed to be internal.
I had to stop my show the other day because my voice went in the last 10 minutes, and I had to kind of go like, I need to tend to this medical emergency.
Oh, wow.
Is that how you phrased it on
Stop
stage?
the show.
I said, everyone, stop! I'm having a medical emergency. And then I had to have loads of drink, and then
Here's a big cup of drink, you thought to yourself.
I'm just having one big cup of drink, and once I got through all the bubbles, I was able to sort of restart.
What happened?
again.
Did you go off stage?
No, I just said, guys, I'm gonna have to level with you.
The audience watched you medicate.
Yeah, but it's always that kind of like that weird scenario on stage where I feel like I'm always quite in control, but then there's the bit where you're drinking and they're just staring at you, and you're just thinking, everyone here thinks I'm an absolute idiot.
I hate even that moment when you go over and have a quick slurp out of your pint of water glass. That silence to me feels unbearable.
Yeah.
It lasts for about 1,000 years.
Yeah, I hate, and what I've started doing is going. So I thought, I'm with you. We're still connected. You can't go.
I feel like I work out in the first week where my big laughs are and when my drink breaks can come. So at the end of my wedding routine, I'm thinking, I'm going to have a lovely sip.
Oh, you see, I just do it when I'm thirsty.
Oh, really?
That whole method.
You are a traditionalist.
Yeah.
But now,
So people keep telling me.
what was the emergency? Was it like that sort of weird itch that you get in your throat sometimes?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm just gonna cough and cough and cough, and I can't. And like I was trying to, I was like, just get through to a big punchline, and then you can take a sip. But I was like, I know where the big punchline is, and I'm too far away from it to get my sip. And then I sort of did a survey of the audience, and I said, surely every single person you now see in this last week of Fringe has this cough, and everyone was like, yeah. So I just think I don't understand why people come in the last week of Fringe, because they're seeing absolute husks of performers trying to deliver their show. And I also get this thing where at the last week of Edinburgh, I don't get nervous, and that means that any filter in my brain that stops me spouting out absolute drivel is just gone.
Yeah.
And I feel like they just see like. The other day, I spent 10 minutes trying to guess the names of men in the front row, and at one point, I just went, "Is this entertainment?" And everyone was like, "No, no, just do your show."
But see, that to me is where the gold is.
I mean, it did get funny eventually after I'd done the fifth man.
There's a thing called Vegas throat.
Oh,
Which
It's a Star Wars character.
Elvis, yeah. Elvis, you've cleaned that one up a bit. It's Elvis had it, and lots of people who do long runs at Vegas. It's because of the proximity of the desert that the air is very dry in Vegas, and eventually the combination of that and performing.
I think I've got aircon throat.
Oh, I went on one night. The only time I've had any throat problems with karaoke throat is when my son was up, and we tried "And I Love Her" on his phone on karaoke, you know, the Beatles song. And there's a bit that goes, "This love of ours will never die." You don't want to be up there just before a gig. And it was an unfriendlier key than that. But it's no good going on the audience thinking he's a bit croaker and me saying, yeah, you know, it's that middle eight in "And I Love Her." They're not interested in those kind of technicalities.
Frank Skinner. Absolute Radio.
We have a bit of a karaoke queen in the room. Mary is with us this morning, helping out, because we're a bit short on numbers this week. What with the rail strike and all that, Mr. Obes. And she does a mean Elvis impression, I'm told.
Really?
Mary, you might remember,
of a cruel Elvis.
she featured on the show last week as we went to see Andrea Spisto, yes, and she made Mary complete part of her show. She played air bass on stage. She was a named character, Michael. Totally featured, and now she's in this show.
I'm quite offended that when you said karaoke queen, my face lit up, and then you said Mary, because Frank, I got some pipes in my locker, you know.
No, I don't doubt. I say I don't doubt. I have no idea what you've got in your locker.
We are in Scotland, so...
Most people have got pipes in their locker.
I think I'm sensational at karaoke.
Oh,
if I'm honest, because I think I've got that perfect blend of I'm not good enough that people feel intimidated or annoyed, but I'm just good enough that they're surprised. Do you know what I'm a little bit impressive.
Yes. That's yeah.
Pets has got something.
There was, I don't know if you're aware of the British comedian Max Bygraves. And Max Bygraves had a TV show and various albums called Sing-Alonga Max. And they'd say he's got a tremendous gift for getting a crowd to sing along, you know, it's beautiful community singing. But his gift was that he wasn't that good. So they weren't menaced by trying to match his singing. I was talking to a professional singer, Alison Moye, when I say professional now in a good term, and she's supporting Southend United. And I think when she sang, some of the fans around her dipped out of the chant because she was too good.
Was she sort of trying to like work up like a sort of choral like descant or something?
The thing is, I don't know if she could sing in a whoa way. I think she was just naturally, her voice came out beautiful and people were intimidated.
When sort of the emotion of who are you really came through.
Yes.
Yes, who? You could see the referee thinking, who am I?
But you sound like you've got it in exactly the right spot.
Yeah,
Chloe.
I think it's fantastic, Frank.
What's your first weapon that you go for? What song?
My first weapon is I'll do The Best by Tina Turner.
Oh.
Because what it is obviously she sings it in an extraordinary way, but it is like one note just across the whole song. So it's sort of quite easy for you to have a go at. And what I find is you get the verses to yourself and then you get the big chorus where everyone joins in, so you keep everyone kind of engaged. So it's simultaneously like narcissistic and philanthropic as a sort of
I always thought that's a song that needed some crossing out in it. It feels like we've got the first draft. You're simply the best. Okay, that's established. You're better than all the rest. Well, yeah, that's the same thing.
As above.
You're better than anyone. So it's like multiple choice opening line.
But then you get one of the most beautiful lines in music, which is, I hang on every word you say.
Well, why if I'm not the best?
Tina. We miss her.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
Absolute Radio.
So, other shows I've seen this week, I went to see Barry Potter. Barry Potter, guess what that is?
Frank, can I just ask, what's your method of deciding what you're going to see? Because it's the most sort of slapdash collection I've ever heard.
It differs. With Poof, Adrian Chiles was in Edinburgh interviewing the woman who wrote Sally Wainwright at the television festival, and his wife is a big friend of the performer from Poof, so that's how I went on that one. And with Barry Potter, my son was up and he loves Harry Potter, so he says let's go and see, and he loves magic. Oh, I've given it away now. So Barry Potter is a magician.
God, we never would have guessed.
I think it was forced his act into a Harry Potter shaped mould. And did some... I'm so impressed by magic. I should be invited to every magic show there's ever been, because he starts off, he gets a woman on stage and he gives her a golden snitch, which I don't know if you know is part of the Quidditch game. She has to put her hands behind her back, the old thing, and then come out, and he has to guess which hand this tiny thing is in. And he does it 4 out of 4. 4 out of 4. So by then, I'm completely won over that this man is in league with the devil.
Frank, is this your barometer of what good magic is? Because I think I could probably do that during the next song.
We'll try that.
Okay.
We'll try that.
So you feel like in the terms of a magic show audience, you take on the role of sort of credulous villager.
I'm just the perfect. I'm so impressed by magic in all its in all its forms. Even though I have to say a lot of his actual banter was, I would call, sob cracker. As in, not as in the Robbie Coltrane series, but as in the thing that one pulls apart with a bang.
But I feel like our barometer for like what good jokes are now is possibly too high. Like when I go to musicals, I absolutely love musicals, but I'll sort of watch and think, I would have loved to have got hold of that script and done a little punch up.
Oh yeah, we've all done that.
Give me Hairspray. Give me Hairspray. I'll do a punch up.
Theatre humour.
I imagine you're also thinking I could have sung that better.
Oh, of course. Of course I could play Tracy Turnblad. If there's any musical theatre producers out there, please give me a call.
Well, and they might. You know what happened? I interviewed Andrew Lloyd Webber and he said, I'm looking for a new idea. And a woman phoned up and said, I've been working on The Woman in White as a musical, and And it became a musical.
Oh, right.
Just because he'd said that on my chat show. I
And
used
we
to have a
can,
chat show, Chloe, before you were born.
we can pitch your The Life of Riley, the documentary of.
There will be. That
Rachel
will
Riley.
happen. It will be called The Life of Riley.
And I'd be willing to play her.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Now,
Can I be Jimmy Carr?
can you do the laugh?
No, I think the prosthetics, that'd be ours. A car is born.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Pierre Novelli and Chloe Petts. You can text the show on 81215. Follow us on X and Instagram at Frank on the Radio. Email us via frank@absoluteradio.co.uk. We haven't had many this morning, have we? Is it because we're a bit further away? Is that how email works?
I think so,
Yes,
yeah.
they'll all arrive in about an hour.
Look, we did an experiment during that break. Chloe Petts, who's something of a braggart, we found out from a discussion of karaoke,
As opposed to a boggart.
then turned and dismissed Barry Potter's 4 out of 4 hand spots that she could do that during the break. So I went, I'll tell you what I did. I need to return this. I picked up a key from the toilet here at Radio 4th, where we're lodging while we're in Edinburgh. And this was the toilet roll key.
Ah.
You know the bar that you
They are thrifty in Scotland, aren't they?
the bar that goes through the toilet roll is locked here, so that
Wow.
no one can steal the toilet paper.
Or replace it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the keeper of the key was in there anyway. I don't understand any of it. Anyway, I must replace it because I don't want to lock out the toilet paper, as it were. You know, that old tradition, that old Hogmanay tradition.
It'll be a good year if the toilet paper is locked
But
out.
anyway, Chloe Petts then chose which hand I was holding the toilet roll key,
Yeah.
and she failed 3 out of 4.
Yeah, I don't like the person that I am this morning. I feel like all I'm doing is undermining the talents of other people. I'm like, it's easy to be a singer, it's easy to be a magician, and it's not any of those things. It's very hard to do those things.
It's a John Noakes approach. John Noakes was a Blue Peter presenter before your time, and he used to go and do a different person's job every week. And I saw an interview with him. He was something like he'd cleaned Nelson on the top of Nelson's column, had done the industrial clean, and he was in his harness. And he said, I don't know what it is with me, really, but, so, you know, I just go into people's jobs and things that it's taken them years to learn, I can learn in like 5 minutes. I thought, wow!
But I've never related harder to a person in my life.
Anyway, at one point, he calls for a volunteer and he chooses my partner, Kath, who is the least keen on being in the spotlight person you could imagine. We've been offered family fortunes, Mr. and Mrs., even relative values in, is it the Sunday Times where they do that thing? She won't do any of them. And anyway, it's very hard not. If he says, this lovely lady in the spectacles, although he did have this habit of saying, I really like this very lovely lady, and then look around for another minute to decide which one it was. And thus he devalued loveliness. But anyway, he got her up on stage, which I couldn't believe had happened. And she had to, he had some 8x12s of various characters from Harry Potter, which he was going to predict which one she'd chosen, etc., etc. But it reminded me, the very first time I came to Edinburgh, I went to see Julian Clary, and I was chosen as his stooge. Ah. And as we said, Mary's on the show today. And I just, have you ever been, either of you ever been called up on stage? Have you?
Yes. Once.
Well, just hold it and we'll find out what happened after this little baby.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
Who, me, yes. So,
We've got a text in from 286 regarding being brought on stage.
yes, has anyone out there been called up on stage as a they used to call them stooges. I don't know if they call them that anymore.
Sort of volunteer in the least
Well, you
true
say
sense of the word.
Exactly. So, come on, what did they say?
286 says, when I was a child,
I like it so far.
yeah, I was picked out of the stalls with a load of others to get on stage with David Essex and do a dance at a performance of Robinson Crusoe at Newcastle's Theatre Royal.
Wow.
Got a little chocolate bar at the end.
Nice. All of them got that, do you
I think so.
Or
I
did
can't-
they have to fight over it as part of this show?
As
They
a part
just
of a
threw it into the middle of the kids and they
part
just
of a-
scrapped.
Lord of the Flies style aspect to Robinson Crusoe. Now that you are all on the island, there is only one chocolate bar.
Oh, that's... see, people remember it forever. So you were once called up, Pierre.
Yes, but it wasn't necessarily in a whimsical or nice way.
Oh.
Well, it was interesting. I had gone to watch a live recording of the podcast We Have Ways of Making You Talk, which Al Murray and James Holland, the historian, host.
Oh, okay.
And James Holland, being an incredibly detail-oriented man, had written lots of interesting things, interesting to me, about the various uniforms of the sides of the Second World War and what the effect that they had on
Blimmin' it, Pierre.
Yeah, I know.
This is him. This is him at the club.
This is me. I had my Zippo lighter in the air. I was waving it. One more fact. That's what I chanted at the end.
Throwing his underwear at the hosts.
As a sidebar here, Pierre mentioned earlier a thing called hot hands. Which could you sum it up quickly?
In the NBA, in basketball in America, there's this idea of hot hands, and when a player is doing well or scoring frequently or is on a roll, basically, that they have hot hands and should be passed to more because they've got this sort of on a roll thing happening to them.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people did a big analysis of the stats and found that it's not statistically true.
You see, that is one of the things that really makes me angry, because there's loads of stuff in football about things like home advantage and whether a team who equalises in the last minute is more likely to win after extra time. And those are things that have been held for years as truths. And then in recent times, many statisticians have gone and just spoilt it for everyone.
Although I thought home advantage was proved.
That might be one of them, but there's many things that people have always thought that have just have gone.
But I think we're also in a stage where like things can be proved absolutely empirically, but people will still insist on being like, nah, I disagree with that just on a vibe.
Yeah, but I don't want to be that guy either. What I want, I've always said this, there's only two good conversations to be had, say in a public house, and that is where no one knows what they're talking about or where everyone knows what they're... But one bad apple who knows what he's talking about can ruin a whole group.
Yeah,
yeah.
Pierre.
That man is
yeah.
Pierre also Googles a
Stop
lot.
reading, Pierre.
Oh, I'm absolutely...
So I offer a poetic interpretation of some historical event, and then Pierre says, well, actually, it was only 9,400 people. You're got that absolutely incorrect.
It's like there's two of them.
Wow.
The director, Werner Herzog, said someone accused him of doing a documentary with sort of faked shots or kind of exaggerating something. And he said, I present the sublime truth and not the accountant's truth. So you could say that from now on.
What about when I saw a Scottish historian at the book festival in Edinburgh, and he was talking about the Scottish Enlightenment, the Edinburgh Enlightenment in the 18th century, and someone said, could there be another Edinburgh Enlightenment? And he said, the future is not my period.
Oh, yeah.
Shot down in flames.
Frank Skinner on
Have we heard from, I think, what's known as Le Monde El Fresco?
We certainly have. Simon F. has sent in a tweet. David Schneider got me up on stage as part of his stand-up act.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought I'd be safe being quite far back, but he wove his way through the audience to pick me out.
That's not right. That's not right. Because I think David Schneider is a very good friend of mine, but I've always think people come to the front because they want to be in the show, generally speaking. Although sometimes, you know, those people that don't laugh at all for the whole show and everyone else is collapsing, they do tend to... They want to be seen to be not enjoying it, I think.
They feel like sometimes they've come to sort of inspect you.
Yes.
Do you think so? I think sometimes people just don't know how to be an audience member. And I also think, particularly at the Edinburgh Fringe, where it's like fill up from the front, you can be like an unsuspecting sort of front row member. And they're the ones that they don't seem to be laughing because they're just too busy being scared. And to be honest, I don't help with that because I do shout at the front row quite a lot.
Well, last time I was up here, I met a woman. I'd watched her all night not laughing in the third row.
Oh.
I mean, really not really moving. I started to think it was like Banquo's ghost and she wasn't really there. It was an empty. There's someone who'd sat there in the 1920s. Anyway, the next day, she said, I was at your show last night. And I thought, oh, here we go. And she said, oh, man, it was just hilarious. I said, you were in the third row? And she said, yeah. I said, but you didn't laugh once. I never saw you laugh. She said, yeah, other people have said that to me. I just, I don't know. I think it's just like the laughing isn't like visible.
That's mad.
And I thought, I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that and apply it to all those monstrous people.
You
who
reacted
sit
like Scrooge, sprinting through the streets.
At last, I have it out. Exactly.
There's still time.
Boy, what day is it?
Not always
It's no one laughing day.
Of course. Mr. Scrooge, go and buy a fine goose. My boy, turns out it's not always visible.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
Frank, we've had someone write in with quite beautiful language, actually, about when their, and I quote, beautiful wife was called up to assist with a performance. So this is from Chris Jennings, and he says some years ago,
There's a book called Jennings, of course, about Jennings, the sort of public schoolboy figure.
We've kept up the tradition of when I come on this show of me understanding about 20% of your references, but you always explain them so wonderfully.
I did say #orcs earlier just to make you feel at home.
Just to make me feel at home back in 2010. Some years ago, we took the family to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh. Wandering around the streets, we came across a large gathering watching a guy on stilts. Within a blink of an eye, Mullet Man, a New Zealand daredevil, had selected my beautiful wife in her green fleece jumper to assist him in his act. Reluctantly, she was dragged to the centre where she had a teddy bear snatched from her hand with a long whip. I'm into that.
Wow. Wow, that's a special.
That's unlocked something within me. His main stunt, though, was to juggle a wrench, sword and flaming torch whilst at the top of his stilts. Kate, the beautiful wife's one job was to pass him the items by throwing them up. Mullet Man told her she was expletive, as after giving clear instructions to flick the handle towards him when throwing them up, she failed and he cut his hand on the sword. There was blood, and then he scorched himself with the burning torch. My wife was actually traumatised by the whole ordeal and honestly didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. I wonder, though, you know, sometimes as a comedian, when you do like those, air quotes, improvisations that are the same every night, he probably did the same thing, just a bit of fake blood.
Maybe.
Scorched, it was like just his thing.
Well, see, this is another case of a myth being exposed by that kind of reasoned argument. I like that story because it fitted into my view that the beautiful are hopeless at everything.
They have no cause to be good at throwing knives at Mullet Mans.
Yeah, God, they've got, they're beautiful and that's it. Also, I don't like the teddy bear being under the whip.
Oh, well, that's too close to your test, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to test people, Chloe. I'll try this on you. I would say to let's say to someone I was becoming close to, would you be able to knock a nail into a teddy bear's face? And if they could, being based on it being an animal, I think that person doesn't have the level of compassion and warmth that I want close to me.
I feel like you probably ruined some very fruitful relationships by that hypothetical.
Could you do it?
I'm not going to answer that question now. I know what you think the outcome should be. But that feels to me like, have you ever heard the discourse around girlfriends asking partners, would you love me if I was a worm?
No.
Oh, yes, this is a meme.
It's quite a meme thing. Yeah. So it's like, imagine you're like laying next to your partner, having sort of a cuddly moment in bed, and then the girlfriend will turn to often the boyfriend and say, would you love me if I was a worm? And if the man says no, then they say, well, you clearly don't love me enough then.
That is
sort of started as a some sort of joke or meme or something, and it's become a reference point.
It's sort of Kafkaesque as well, the idea of metamorphosis. This is a clean story, but I was once in bed with a lady, and in the middle of the night, you roll over, and I rolled so my back was facing her, and I heard her say, charming.
Oh, my God.
I thought, this cannot work.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
Regarding being taken up on stage, 251 gets in touch and says, me and my sisters once went to see the Blues Brothers at a local theatre. We were told everyone dresses up like the Blues Brothers. Yeah. So we did. We were the only ones dressed like the Blues Brothers. They then got us up on stage at the end to dance with them. Mortified. Rachel in Sheffield.
Did I tell you when I had to judge best costume?
Sorry, I misread that, Frank. Mortified Rachel.
Oh, sorry. Mortified Rachel would be quite a good stage name.
It would be good, wouldn't it? Very stiff.
It's a bit like Moaning Myrtle, isn't it?
Yeah.
I once judged best costume at a late night Sound of Music sing-along.
Of course.
And there were two Nazis in the audience, full Nazi uniform. And all I could think to say was, how did you get here?
We marched.
They said, we got the tube. I said, no, you can't have got the tube. So anyway,
to be fair,
I didn't give it to them.
If you were dressed like that and you got into a packed tube carriage, the temptation to say, papers, please, down the end of down the whole carriage.
Well, obviously, having asked me to do it, they knew that the nuns were going to be the favourites.
Of course.
So I went for two nuns. Yes. So look, Chloe, it's been great having you on. And often when people are on, I think we should plug their stuff. And I know you're all sort of coy, but what are you up to that we can come and see Chloe Pett's doing?
Well, that's very, very kind of you, Frank. If you are currently at the Edinburgh Fringe, then I have one extra show that there are a few tickets left for tonight at 10:30. That's at the Pleasance Courtyard. It's my show, If You Can't Say Anything Nice. I've been having the most fantastic time performing it. I'm having a lovely time.
That's nice.
And if you couldn't catch it here, then I'm doing it at the Soho Theatre from Monday the 30th of October to Saturday the 4th of November. And I feel like when you do Soho Theatre after you've done your Edinburgh run, it almost feels like the fun victory lap that's like the reward after doing this big marathon. I love doing Soho Theatre. So come to that. It will be a massive laugh. One big laugh at the end of my show.
I feel the level of cool, which is a very cool place, the Soho Theatre. Whenever I play there, I feel the level of cool drops dramatically because it's like, you know, when people make the mistake of putting warm food in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Condensation.
To be fair, my mother thought it was the coolest thing in the whole entire world when she met you at the Soho Theatre, when she told you the same story 3 times in a row.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
she did
It got better, that story.
It did get better as it went. She refined it, yeah. And this morning she texted me when I said that I was going to be on the radio. She said, "Say hello to Frank" 3 times.
The 3 R's: repetition, repetition, and repetition. What I want to do Pierre as well now. What about this?
Yeah.
Oh,
What have you got?
Plugs.
Yeah, plugs.
I suppose
Don't make something up. If you've got to make something up, forget about it.
Are you still doing your podcast with Phil Wang?
Yes.
No, we don't want to plug that.
No. The big thing I'm trying to sell is in November, the 23rd of November. I'll be at Leicester Square Theatre, which is a big room that I need to fill. So
Okay.
that would be good to come to. And on tour in general in autumn, round the nation.
I think you
Brackets
should.
and Dublin.
I think you should call that tour a big room I need to fill. I like it. Yeah, well, look, they're 2 funny guys. Go see them. On the next episode of Frank Skinner's Poetry Podcast. That was the cheer.
It's great, by the way.
We'll be out on Wednesday. It's Jean Sprackland, and you probably think I've never heard of Jean Sprackland. She's a contemporary poet, and she's absolutely tremendous. Download it from wherever you get your podcasts. It's a life changer. That's my view. Chloe, it's been an absolute joy having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pierre, you know, the usual.
Yeah.
And we, if the good Lord spares... Oh, thanks for listening, everyone, obviously. It's been fabulous being up in Edinburgh. It's an absolute lark. Thanks to Radio 4th for having us. And if the good Lord spares us and the creeks don't rise, we'll be back again this time next week. Now, get out.
This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.